Supporting Actor Roundtable for Variety's TV Fest. I am Emily Longaretta, Senior TV Features Editor here at Variety, and I'm so excited to have some of the actors from some of my favorite shows on TV. I'm such a big fan of everyone on this panel, so please welcome Abbott Elementary's Janelle James, Succession's Nicholas Braun, The Dropouts' Naveen Andrews, Dope Sick's Kaitlyn Dever, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel's Alex Borstein, and of course, Maid's Andie MacDowell. Thank you guys so much for doing this today.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
I want to kick this off and kind of look back a little bit because you guys all have such great careers, and I wanted to kind of go around and kind of ask what made you want to be part of this industry? What made you want to be an actor, and when that kind of started off for you? So, Kaitlyn, let's kick it off with you, if you don't mind.
Oh gosh, I think it was probably, I don't know. I always loved making my parents laugh at home. It was like my favorite thing in the world. And I feel like I always had this urge to mimic people all the time. And so I was just constantly putting on plays with my sisters and stuff at home. And then I think really what made me want to be in the industry, or made me want to be an actor, really was Toni Collette's performance in The Sixth Sense was actually the first time I was just like in awe of a performance that I had seen. And it was the first, I think, real like movie of like with substance, because I was, I grew up watching like Disney Channel, and I think it was really just the first thing I was like blown away by. And she really inspired me to want to be an actor. I think she was the first thing.
Nice. Janelle, what about you?
I never wanted to be an actor. I just started saying that I am, but I always said I'm a comedian. I never wanted to be a comedian either. I just kind of fell into it, and I'm still not sure if I even want to be an actor either, but I'll do it for a little while. I kind of just do whatever comes my way and seems fun, and it's working out.
Definitely working out. Naveen, how about you?
Oh God. I got thrown out of my sixth form college, which in England is like when you're 16, 17. And I'd heard that if you auditioned for drama school at that time in the 80s, it was like they pay for you if you got in, and I'd heard, it's glamorous and all that, and you get a place to live as well for like 3 years. So it's better than being on the street. And of course, if you're lucky enough to get in, I suppose they kind of brainwash you into that's what you have to do with the rest of your life. But I never thought of it as a career at all. And just like you said, Janelle, I'm not sure if I do now.
Yeah.
but all said and done, yeah, that I was just lucky, I suppose.
Yeah.
Alex?
I can't do anything else. I can't really do anything else. I thought maybe I'd be a lawyer. I studied rhetoric and I thought maybe law. And then I realized, well, that's the only part you get to really stand up and talk in front of people is in a court. And that's very rare. I realized I just really liked performing and playing with words. I worked in advertising for a while. But I guess similar to Kaitlyn, I was always the comic relief in my house. I was always, that was my role, to kind of lessen a lot of tension. And it just kind of grew from the Passover table. That's for every Jewish kid's first performance is reading the 4 questions during Passover. And that was kind of where I started realizing the laughs were plentiful and I liked having that attention. So here we are, folks. I apologize.
Nicholas, what about you?
I started when I was really young. I started when I was 6. My dad left a career in the music industry designing record albums because he wanted to be an actor. So he had this like late in life, career change, life change. And he would come home. My parents were divorced. And so I would see him on the weekends and he'd be like, this week, he lives in New York. So I come to the city and he's like, this week I learned this. I learned the repetition exercise. I learned, some more Meisner. Let me give you like a little dose of Meisner. It's so weird telling the story, going back into the memory bank, but he would sit me in a chair opposite him and he would do repetition exercises, or I would read his scenes with him that he was preparing for an audition. And I think I just caught the bug. You get to, as a kid, 6, 7, 8 years old, I'm like reading Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf with my dad, like playing Virginia Woolf. And we're like yelling at each other. I'm screaming, I'm swearing, I'm like doing all these things I don't get to do as a kid, living in Connecticut, which was where my mom lived. So it was an escape. And I think if you're a person who needs to express themselves but can't that easily, then you can do it forever.
Absolutely.
Not to get too sentimental about it, sorry, but yeah.
No, that's great. Andie, what about you?
I grew up in a really small town, and there was a small college in my town, and my mother took me to a play when I was probably 9 years old, approximately. And I realized that these adults were playing make-believe. And I thought, oh my God, that was my favorite game in the world, was to play make-believe and kind of make up characters and come up with scenarios of, what we're going to do and who we are, where we're from, and basically creating a play with my friends. I loved doing that. Then I realized adults did it. And then it connected to me that, oh my gosh, when I'm watching TV, that's what these adults are doing. They're playing make-believe. And then I recognized that it was a job. I talked to my parents about it being a job. And my father knew a woman from my small town, you're talking about 5,000 people, that married someone on a soap opera. That was his connection, because I was asking him, can you connect me to this business, please? Because this is what I want to do. And I got older, and then I figured it out, how to get there and how to, I didn't know anybody. I just kind of made my way to New York and started auditioning and taking classes, and it kind of happened. Same thing. I don't know what I would do if I didn't do this, because I don't know that I could do many other things. This is kind of I don't know, it's what I just love playing make-believe. And I say to the actors that I'm working with, I always say, isn't this fantastic? This is what we do. I find it fascinating that this is what we get to do. I just love it.
Absolutely. And I want to know, obviously, you guys all, I think landing a part now is very different than maybe it used to be. The audition process is very different. So I want to talk a little about how you landed these specific roles that we're talking about today. Janelle, maybe you could kick that off talking about your journey to Abbott and how you kind of landed on Abbott Elementary.
The audition happened during quarantine, like at the tail end of when we were kind of just opening up, but I was very much still in the house. And I think like everybody in a what is the point kind of mind state. And thankfully my agent stayed on me like, hey, I think you can do this. You should try it. And I hadn't set up my little tripod or camera or ring light or any of that in 9 months or so. And so I actually couldn't even find my ring light. I had my son holding a lamp this way for my light. And I did a self-tape and I sent it in. And then this is network. So 4 more auditions later, 4 more Zoom auditions later, I got it. So it was a surprise. it was a surprise, but it wasn't like a glamorous experience. It was, yeah. And not only that, I had hernia surgery before my third audition. So I was super high on opioids when I did so that's my advice for any, and but yeah, I was.
So you have to take those on set a lot.
Yeah, to maintain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Got it.
But yeah, I had to come, I had a walker and I had to tell him, look, I have like 15 minutes upright. Let's do it. But that was by the third, you get progressively more and more people on the Zoom as you, I guess you advance in the auditions, and then I got it, and here I am.
Great story. Nick, what about you?
I'd heard about, it just came through like any other audition, it said Succession, and it said Adam McKay is directing and producing, and a guy named Jesse Armstrong, and I didn't know his work. It's like HBO, that sounds like a good one. And it shoots in New York, and I'm, from New York. I was living in LA at the time. I was like, oh, cool. All right, this would be great. And then I read the script, and I did not understand it. It was like about business and deal making and billions and billions, talking about money all the time. And then I read Greg's stuff, and I was like, well, I understand this stuff. This stuff is, I can do this thing within this show. And so I just went on an audition, and Adam was there, and, I did the pages, and then he had a scenario he wanted me to do, which was in the pilot, my character is working at an amusement park in the first episode, training to be a mascot. And he just had a scenario where he was like, I'm just going to be the orientation leader, and it's you and me, we're in a room, and I'm going to grill you about how you should deal with certain situations at the park. And so I just kind of riffed and said whatever came to my Greg brain, my undeveloped Greg brain. And it was fun. And so then I came back a couple months later to meet Jesse, and then I got it, and that was that. It was a different one. It was different. Yeah.
I feel like everyone thing is so different now. It used to be everyone thing was kind of very cut and dry, but every show has its own story, which is why I love to hear about these stories. Alex, what was the journey to Maisel like?
At the time I had kind of given up on show business. I decided to move to Barcelona and kind of hung it up and left. And literally days before I left, Amy Sherman Palladino, texted or called. I was like, are you really going to Barcelona? I was like, yeah. And she said, well, there's this thing. And, I kind of wrote it with you in mind, and I want you to read for it. And I was like, I think I'm kind of done. And I read it like almost on the plane, and was like, God damn it, this is really good. Now what? So I flew back after being in Barcelona for only a tiny bit of time and auditioned in the room, which it's so interesting. You're talking about, Janelle, like doing it online. And in some ways it's great when you can self-tape, because you can edit, you can do as many takes as you want, you can breathe and take your time. But I think sometimes for me, being in that room and the terror, the fear and the terror and the sweat, maybe makes my performance a little bit better. There's something more exciting. And I did forget to put deodorant on the day, and I had massive pit sweats during the audition. And I think Amy thought it was like, oh, what an interesting choice. This character, yeah, I like that. And I was like, no, I'm just sweating profusely like a pig, but I'm glad you like that. Yeah, and then I did a reading, I think the same day with Rachel for chemistry, because our characters really are, it is a love story, even though it's platonic. So that had to be there. And then I got the part, and then I thought, how am I going to do this? Well, it'll just be a pilot. No big deal. I'll fly back for the pilot. And then it got picked up, and then it became schlepping back and forth from Barcelona to New York, but well worth it.
For sure.
I just want to clarify that I did 5 auditions. My first one was a self-tape. The other 4 were through the computer, but it was live through Zoom. So
It's almost the worst.
The terror was there.
Andie, what about for Maine? What was that process like for you?
Oh, well, I was working on something and I got this call, which it was stunning for me because it was, to work with my daughter. And I think, my daughter had this desire to really do her own thing and not be so much associated with me, because I think that there is this tendency to feel like her life is easier because of me. People would say things like that to her. And then here she was giving me a job. And that, it had so many different feelings for me. And to hear her think that I'm good had, such an effect on me. It just, to have your child think you're good and to want you. So I just really wanted to do a good job for her. I didn't want to let her down. And at the same time, I felt like, I've got to do a good job for this production, because here I am, the real mother coming in. But I think, there was so much to our own relationship that, we could use, that was available. And also I feel like Molly saw what my strong suits are and gave me a lot of good comedy in the darkness. There's a lot of darkness to my character because she is bipolar, but also the opportunity to layer it with some humor. And so I think it really worked out. I am just so grateful for this opportunity, because a lot of times, people have come up to me and they've said, I didn't know you could do that. And here I am, I'm 64 now. And you can show people what you're capable of doing only if they give you the opportunity. And now people know that I can do that, which is amazing at my age, because it is. I could move to Barcelona too. Sometimes I feel like I should move to Barcelona, but it's like a revival for me. And I'm extremely grateful.
Absolutely. And for Kaitlyn and Naveen, obviously for you guys, I saved you guys for last for this question, because these stories are real stories and they're based on, real true events that are pretty devastating. So Kaitlyn, for you, can you talk a little bit about your process and if you were familiar with the story beforehand and kind of the horror of it beforehand?
Yeah. I obviously was familiar with the opioid crisis, but I didn't know the details of it and how it began, and basically on lies and manipulation and how much injustice there was there. And when I got the script, it just came in as a normal audition. It came in actually right at the beginning of the pandemic, where we were I had projects that I was supposed to do that kind of just stopped. And it was at that point where we didn't really know what was going on. And I got this audition and I immediately read it and just fell in love with Betsy. And I just had this deep need to play her. And before I sent my tape in, I got I heard from Danny Strong, our showrunner and writer, and he wanted to just chat with me before I did my tape. And immediately he was just the most amazing person and so passionate about this story. And it just made me want to be a part of this project even more, because of how much he just felt the desperate need to tell this story. And that just was so infectious. And I felt, it is really hard to get jobs and work. And especially at that time, I was so grateful to be working on something, and especially something that felt was really, really, really an important story to tell. And, I love being an actor, but I think that it's even better when you get to be a part of something that sheds light on a story that really deserves to be told. So I was over the moon.
Naveen, obviously for you, a lot of people knew this story. What was your like kind of familiarity with the story before you joined the show, and how did that come about?
But I couldn't have, I don't think I failed to be aware of that it was in the media when the story broke. But I wasn't interested, because it was like these young people and their bloody startups and their money, who cares about that? Fuck that. I'm not interested at all. And then I found out that my agent had like been trying to get me in the room. Apparently, and I can talk about this because Judy Bacharach, who was the casting director, did come up to me after the screening and talk to me about it. But she had said to my agent, "Oh no, he's not right. He's not right. He doesn't look like the geezer. He's not overweight. He doesn't, he's blah blah blah, and he's not the geezer. I'm sorry, but, Eventually, she just said, "All right, bring him in, but I'm warning you, it's just a waste of time. Okay, it's his time and your time. It's a waste of everybody's time." But I went in and tested, and then they went, "Can you go to London and test the next day?" With, at this point, it was Kate McKinnon playing Elizabeth. So I flew to London, and I think they call it the chemistry test. And then COVID happened, and everything shut down. And we were supposed to have Kate McKinnon, an English director who'd done Fleabag. So it was like, oh, well, I guess it's not happening, And then I think the director dropped out, Kate McKinnon dropped out. So, it's definitely not bloody happening. And then they offered it to two actresses, one of whom was Amanda Seyfried, and she took it. And then suddenly it was on again. And and then of course I found out from the script that this was obviously a story that wasn't just about a scam. It had Shakespearean dimensions to it, as far as I was concerned, and that my part was a bit like Lady Macbeth. So I wanted to do it. So I'm very grateful Amanda took it.
Yeah. Well, it's really great that you did take it. We're very thrilled about it. I'm curious, obviously, every one of the shows that we're talking about today has such an incredible cast dynamic. And of course, a show can't really be a success without that, especially some of these great ensembles. So I want to talk a little about that. Nick, maybe we can start with you and talk a little bit about forming the chemistry with the cast and what that's been like over the years, especially with you guys, and how you first started creating that chemistry and bond.
It wasn't too difficult, honestly. I mean, we didn't have to do trust exercises or anything. It's a great group of people and a bunch of good actors and amazing writing that kind of tells you, like, this is your lane. Like, we need you in this lane, and we need these. We've got 20 lanes, and everybody kind of knew their job. And I will say Adam McKay set us up in a good way because he let us improv a ton in the pilot and would just shout things at us from his monitor over a walkie. Like, he would be in a walkie and there would be a speaker on set and he'd be like, "Nick, talk about the salad." And we'd be at the dining table and I'd be like, "Well, so what is this, arugula?" And all of a sudden the scene starts out of that. And then Connor starts talking to me about salad and that, well, he grows, I grow salad in New Mexico at my ranch. And, you sort of start to build history through improv sometimes. So I think we all took that as a key into all of our, as like a way to unlock stuff. And so it worked like that. And I will say with Matthew, who I do a lot of fun stuff with in the show, who plays Tom. He and I love each other. We just found a dynamic very quickly and trusted each other. They give us a lot of crazy stuff as opposed to like highly dramatic stuff, which they give other people on the show. Like So sometimes we're used as like a tension release, and we just like let it rip, and whatever comes out, and just the ultimate level of trust. So he's one of my favorite people I've ever worked with, because I think that's the dream, that there's a backboard, like a great backboard every time you're working with that person. But really all these people, all the cast, it's the same.
Janelle, how about you? Because obviously this show is such a big dynamic and a big, huge ensemble of great, hilarious actors. So what was that kind of like, that process, getting to know them?
I mean, I just remember I was so happy to be outside. That was one of the most things. So I think I brought that energy to set with me. And I felt like everyone else was also happy to be outside and working. And we were just like really happy. And so our show is a straight ahead comedy. So we're just like laughing and joking around all the time. And I feel lucky that there's like, veteran actors like Shirley Ralph and Tyler on the show with me. So and that they were so open to teaching me basically things like where to stand and what a mark is and all those things. So nobody made me feel like an outsider or like I didn't know what I was doing. And Quinta is an amazing boss, knows how to treat people. We didn't have any psychos in not on cast or in crew, which I hear is unheard of. It was like kismet. We were firing as soon as we met. And for me, I'm like, I can only control myself. So I made sure that I was just nice to everybody, so, and everybody else was as well. And so it all worked out. Yeah. And another thing, we're all cool people who have like shit to do. So we come in, we do our job, and then we go home. So that makes us happy to see each other the next day. We're not spending every moment together, or trying to force an office family vibe. So I think that helped as well.
Of course. Yeah. Alex, what about you? I mean, I know you mentioned, and anyone who watches the show, of course, knows that your character and Rachel's character spend a lot of time together and they have this great story. So was that an immediate connection you guys had?
Yeah, we really did. And it felt like we shouldn't. It felt like that old cartoon with like the chicken hawk and the wolf, or I don't know, like we're so different. And, I'm old enough to be her mother, and yet we just fell into this great chemistry and this great friendship. And we work very differently. We're different creatures, but somehow it works. I guess because the characters are similarly different, if that makes sense, from two worlds, and yet they need each other and depend on each other. And our cast there's no assholes. There's no drama. No one's late. No one shows up without knowing their lines. Like everyone works so hard. Like we're not allowed to improvise anything. Everything is letter perfect. Like you can't say cannot if it's can't, and it's really hard for me. And it's very, very long days. But everyone brings it and they're so good. And it's such a pleasure to watch everyone firing, on all cylinders. And our methods are so different. And, I'm super uptight and get really angry when I mess up lines and call myself the C word and get very upset. I kind of pace back and forth like a bull with my nuts tied up before they let me out of the pen. And Rachel's very like, and sweet and happy. But somehow it works. It's the perfect blend.
Yeah. Naveen, what about you? Because I mean, like you said, Amanda came on a little bit, pretty much way later after you did. So I'm curious, what was that an immediate bond with you guys?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say that just to be a part of that cast was like a real honor, just because I feel like all of us, are like sort of surrounding the central performance of Amanda's, and we all make a contribution to that story, but at the heart of it is Amanda. And to be able to watch that close up, I don't think I appreciated it as much as watching it on the telly afterwards, because when you're in it, you can't, you're doing what you're doing your job. But, yeah, it was a privilege to watch her put that together. And I was I was actually influenced, but because I'm 53, I'm fucking old. Do you know what I mean? And she's like, you know, the same age difference as the characters, like I think 17 years, and she never complains. She doesn't, because I think I moan a lot. You know, I'm from England. I shouldn't use that excuse, but I moan. I'm always moaning and like miserable bastard. And then she's like very open to, like, you know, Liz Merriweather would sometimes write dialogue on the day that were coming from these texts that were from what happened in court. And it was so, you know, again, I'm English. It's like, I don't know about this, you know. And Amanda would be like, just try it. Because sometimes even if stuff's cut, it still informs the scene. Yeah. And I think it helped me improve as an actor. Definitely. She definitely influenced me. So, yeah.
Kaitlyn, what was the vibe with you guys on set? How did you guys kind of create that bond early on?
Yeah, I think, you know, because I was, you know, nervous going into it, because obviously it's a really, really heavy subject matter, and I knew that it was going to be it was going to be really hard. And getting to set and you know, getting to know everybody, cast and our crew, everybody, I think it was, you know, we had just been through the pandemic, we were still in the pandemic, and everybody, there was just like a general just like joy that we had on set, and that was with everybody, and everybody was just so happy to be there. And my castmates were just so incredible. I got to work with Mayor Winningham playing my mom, and Ray McKinnon playing my dad. And for our scenes in particular, that was a really fun dynamic, because, you know, I genuinely loved them so much. And I think it really helped with this, you know, some of the tough scenes that we were doing together. There was always this like layer of love underneath it that, I mean, Ray was just making me like pee my pants laugh before every take. He just made me laugh so much. It was kind of awful, actually. He's really the best. But even with Michael, you know, I admire him so. He's like a bucket list actor and I think I can speak for several actor friends. I mean, he's Michael Keaton, and I had so much love for him just as Kaitlyn. But then I think our bond, you know, Dr. Phoenix and Betsy's bond in the show is such a special one. It's like my favorite relationship in the show. And he was incredible. I was in awe of him, you know. I learned so much from him, and really just it was so inspiring to get to work with all the people I got to work with on the show. That show is a really, really special one. And Michael is just like, it's Michael Keaton. I can't even, he's truly just insane.
Absolutely. Andie, obviously for you, it's a little different since you have a different relationship with the other cast members, and of course it's family. So I'm curious, what was that vibe like, and then with the rest of the cast as well?
Most of my scenes were with my daughter. It really wasn't an issue. My goal was to do a good job. So that was all I really cared about. I would go up to her and check in and be sure that she liked what I was doing. And the character that my daughter played, I think we would find her a bit, as you would in real life, arrogant, because she's got her, she wants to get her life together. And we don't really necessarily want to do that. We're comfortable in our darkness. But I think the funny thing that happened was Nick Robinson, who plays her husband, and it would come out in real life because I was comfortable. I called him Nicholas John. That's his middle name, and the character I would call him Shawnee. Nobody else did that. I just did that, and there was this warmth between us. that happened in real life too. And she would point it out. Like, what are you going to do? Adopt him? And what are you guys in love with each other? She would be tormented by that. And it was interesting because that was reality and it was what we were playing. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
She still teases me about Nick.
Excuse me. Obviously, I would assume that you guys have gotten a lot of advice through the years and maybe are now asked to give others advice about this industry. And I wanted to know what the best piece of advice you've either been given or what you give other people, or maybe like the lesson that you wish someone had given you. So anything you guys want to kind of share on that level. Alex, why don't we start with you for this one?
Oh God, that's a bad one. I mean, my general piece of advice is if there's something else that you're good at or can do that instead. Do that instead. Make a better choice. Although, I mean, I guess now the state of the world is volatile no matter what you do. Even if you go through and become a doctor, your loans might eat you up, and that's not steady. So nothing is a given. I think it's I really like when people kind of do their own work. I'm very nervous about the world right now, and there's a lot of shortcutting. There's a lot of weird like YouTube sensation, or I made this TikTok and now I have a television show, and it feels a little strange. And my kids watch these things that aren't whole pieces and don't tell stories. They're clips. There's no attention span, and I don't know. Maybe my advice is for people to try to kind of do the old-fashioned work, be in a play. If you want to do voiceover, work on voices, make a demo tape, even though we don't use demo tapes anymore. Like, I think there's something to the long form of doing the work, working with other people, doing an actual play, even if it's, just community theater or something in your school or high school. I think there's a great amount of value in that a lot of people are skipping now.
Kaitlyn, what about you?
Gosh, I feel like I've been given so much like little pieces of advice over the years, and I just sort of, I think on each job I've learned so much, and I've sort of just become a sponge, and it's almost like subconscious of the things that I learn and take away from each job. I think, for me, I guess if I were to give advice, I feel like I'm still learning, and I'm always going to be learning. I guess acting is so hard, and being in this industry is such a hard thing to do. And I guess you just have to keep moving forward, and also moving in a direction of just reminding yourself that there are going to be a lot of no's, and that's okay. And each thing is a building block to the next thing. And I think, and also just like, if you don't love it anymore, don't do it, but do what you love.
That's great advice. Janelle?
The best advice I've been given acting wise by Cheryl on set is to breathe. So that was, and that really, I didn't realize I wasn't breathing. So that's the best advice I've been given. And the best advice, the advice I would give to anyone is do what you want. Who cares? Like, do whatever you want. Like don't tell anyone your plans, because that's when people project their fears onto you. And if that's what you want to do, whatever it is, do it. And if it doesn't work out, do something else. It's not, I try not to take any of this very seriously, too seriously. And because in the grand scheme of things, like Alex was saying, the world there's other things to be worried about, and it doesn't matter in the end. So do what you want, have fun while you're doing it, and just keep it moving. That's how I live. So.
Naveen?
I have to concur with what Alex said. If you don't mind,
please
saying that. But apart from getting sober, which was the best thing that happened to me, I would have to say that this profession, it seems after I've been doing this since I was 21, so I think it chooses you rather than the other way around. And if that's the case, then what can you do? You can't help it.
I love that. Nick, how about you?
I think what comes to mind is, I mean, it's right in Alex's lane as well.
Wow, I kind of won, huh?
You won this one. This is your, yeah.
Alex, totally.
This is your round. I think it's, a lot of people are like, I don't want to be an actor. And you have this sort of daydream about it or what it might be. Even once I started, I'm like, well, this is how it's going to go. And then in 5 years, I'll be here. And that's just not how it goes. And it's really hard. And so if you think, you might as well just try. And if you're beaten down too much, then you'll stop. And if you like the beating and it's worth the good feelings you get 10% of the time, then you stick it out.
Like beating?
And the other piece of advice that I think I knew, but it was verbalized really well to me this season by one of the actors, was stay in the streets, don't go home. Meaning, like, stay with the people, the environment, the place you're in, the feeling you get on set, like pull from the stuff around you in the streets. Don't go back into your thing and be like, okay, wait. But what I wanted to do was this, and then, I wanted to focus on this and I have to do this, because then you've lost the connection, which is really the magic, which makes a scene usually more exciting. I think the person to person. We want to watch people do stuff, not just be by themselves in a room with people.
And last but definitely not least, Andie, I'm sure you've gotten your fair share of advice through the years. So what's the best that you've heard and that you use in your life?
Okay, my thing is learn your lines, because if you know your lines, you can create. If you're having to look for your words, you're going to be lost. And John Wells doesn't allow anyone to bring sides to set. But it was not a problem for me because I love to learn my lines. That's my favorite thing. Sometimes you don't have the opportunity, like you're working on something and they're just giving you stuff. Well, then that suggestion's out the door. But most of the time you have the opportunity to learn your lines. So learn them. That's what I do. I sit on my couch before I go do a job. I learn the whole script. If I'm doing a movie, I know it. I don't need my lines. And my other advice, which I think is really important, I was walking around Silver Lake yesterday and a sweet young boy said to me, I'm a big fan, really admire your work. I'm just on a soap opera right now. And I said, good for you. Good for you. You've got a job. You've got a job. And after this job, you're going to know how to do anything, which is the truth. Mm-hmm. And I think my other advice is don't demean any job. They're all good. I've had great jobs. I've worked on things that are not that great, but I've learned something. I have learned something on absolutely every job, and never show up thinking you were above that job. That's my best piece of advice, is show up being grateful, and everybody else is there. And you should look up to those people and admire those people because you've got something to learn from everyone. That's my advice.
I think that is an excellent note to end on. I am so happy that we got to have this conversation today. Thank you guys so much for joining. It was really, really great to see all of your faces and hear a little insight into your very successful careers. So thank you again. And that concludes day one of Variety's TV Fest. We will see you all tomorrow.